The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. When the days for Jesus being taken up were fulfilled, he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On the way, they entered a Samaritan village to prepare for his reception there. But they would not welcome him, because the destination of his journey was Jerusalem. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to consume them?" Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they journeyed to another village. As they were proceeding on their journey, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus answered him, "Foxes have dens, and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head." And to another he said, "Follow me." And he replied, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." But he answered him, "Let the dead bury their dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." And another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me say farewell to my family at home." To him Jesus said, "No one who sets a hand to the plow and looks to what was left behind is fit for the kingdom of God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
For the end of the year, one of our missionaries, American-born missionaries, returned from working in Brazil. He's a few years younger than I am. He had been there 28 years, and most of the time he was living right near the mouth of the Amazon River. And the last few years he was working with another priest, an Italian priest, who two of them worked together to try to help the landowners, the poor farmers, from the drug people in the area and whoever. Shortly after he came back to the States, and he's living with me and he's working in our office in Detroit now, started noticing different things. He wasn't sleeping well, he had night sweats. And then when he would go out to celebrate Mass, like I do, he goes to different parishes, he would start to tremble. He was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. You usually get that, you usually hear that associated with military who come back from the war, and they've been through such horrific things, they've seen and experienced such horrific things that they're under stress and they don't know even how or why. He obviously didn't see a war, but a few years, maybe 2 years before he came back to the States, he was followed one day he was driving his truck, and some people were following him and pushed him off the side of the road, made him go off the side of the road. They hit the truck and it was demolished, and various things similar to that from the drug people in the area made him very, very nervous about, even though he continued to work in his mission and he loved it, and he keeps saying, "I'm going to go back." But the superiors decided that he should come back to the States for some period of time. The cost of discipleship, what it costs us to be disciples of Jesus, and how much Jesus asks us to give. Last Monday or Tuesday, was it last week? Yeah, it was this past week. 2 Jesuit missionaries working in northern Mexico were shot to death in their church. Once again, probably because of the drug people in the area and because they stood up against them. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He's a great philosopher and theologian in the 1930s and 40s. He was a German, and he spoke out and he wrote against the Nazis. He was from Germany, and eventually the Nazis caught up with him and put him in the concentration camp. And just about a month before the end of the war, he was killed in the concentration camp. Now, we probably will never have to end our lives in that way. That's not probably what Jesus is asking us when he's asking for our discipleship, our following of him. But it could be, theoretically at least. But he's asking for us some very strict things. Jesus has his game face on today. He's not messing around. And he says, come follow me. And when the one guy said, no, I have to go bury my father. No, let somebody else bury your father. You come with me. You come and preach the gospel. And the other man said, no, I want to go say goodbye. At least let me say goodbye to my family, right? I mean, makes sense. And Jesus says, those who look back will never look forward. Jesus is calling us to a very strict discipleship, something that takes a lot out of us. And I have a feeling that this is probably one of the reasons why there are less people coming to church today than there maybe were even 10 or 15 years ago. Because Jesus is calling us to so much. And people aren't willing to, I want to sleep in on Sunday morning, or I want to go golfing, or I want to do whatever, or I don't want to have to forgive one another. I don't want to have to do this. And it's not always easy for what Jesus is calling us to do. But Jesus doesn't relent. He doesn't give up and say, well, that's okay. Just be half-hearted. Just do what you want to do and don't worry about the rest. No, that's not Jesus' way. He's calling us to a very strict discipleship, and the cost is strict. St. Paul tells us in the second reading today, says, it's all summed up in one statement. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself, and then you won't be so bitter and so biting and so angry. And that's not easy, to love your neighbor as yourself. And in the political and religious climate that we live in nowadays, we're constantly seeing battles back and forth and bitterness and anger. And Jesus says, no, you're better than that. Rise above that level. Be a real disciple, Jesus says. Be a real disciple of mine. Really follow me. Love one another as I have loved you. Love one another as much as you love yourself, because we love ourselves. And we love our opinions and our way of believing, and we think that we're right all the time. And Jesus says, hold on here. Let's take another look at things. Look at what I have to say to you. Not what you think I want to say to you. Not what you want to say to you. So the cost of discipleship is high. And we don't always fall into it as well as we should, but we know that, and so we try. And Jesus asks us to keep trying and try. Keep loving our neighbors. Keep away from that anger and that bitterness that divides us, that doesn't bring us together.